Hello everyone and welcome to part 4 of the graphing row series. In this part we're going to focus on the trace button and its second function calc. As with all the other parts that we've been doing, we're going to use the same two equations. The first one being the linear equation, y equals negative 2x plus 6, and the second one being the quadratic equation, x squared minus 7x plus 10. And if I hit graph, this is what they look like. And so just stay tuned and we'll get started. In this session, I'm going to show you a couple handy things that you can do with the trace button. The trace button is located at the top right hand corner of your graphing calculator. And before I press that button, I'm going to press the right arrow on my arrow pad. And you'll notice that my cursor is moving along the x-axis. And if I go up or down, it's going to go up or down also. It's kind of just floating freely. As soon as I press the trace button, it jumps to one of the graph, and now my cursor is going to be constrained to the graphs that I have on my graphing screen. If I go right or left, it's going to trace the graph that I'm currently on. And the graph that I'm currently on, the equation for it is shown in the top left hand corner of the graphing calculator. This is my y1, my linear equation, negative 2x plus 6. And if I want to switch graphs or switch equations, I use the up or down arrows. So I pressed up, and it jumped to my y2, or my second equation, the quadratic equation, x squared minus 7x plus 10. And now I'm on my parabola. And now I can trace my parabola by using the left or the right buttons. Another handy thing with the trace button is if I want to jump to any specific x value, I can just go down to my number pad. For example, if I want to jump to x equals 4 on this quadratic equation, or on the parabola, I type in 4, hit enter, and it jumps right there. And what's neat about this, it shows the corresponding y that goes along with it. So you know this point is 4, negative 2. So let's try that again with my linear equation this time. So I'm going to press the up or down button to jump graphs, and now you can see I'm on my linear equation. And I'm going to move, well, let's just type in a negative value. Let's type in negative 2, and let's see where my cursor jumps to. And it jumps way up here, negative 2, comma 10. So you see, there's a couple things you could do with the trace button. Try them out and have fun. The next couple of sections are going to focus on the trace button's second function, calc. If we hit second trace right now to bring up that calc menu, you'll notice that there are several options on this menu. The ones that are most helpful at this level are options 2, 3, 4, and 5. In this session, we're going to go over the second option in the calculate menu, which is the 0 option. Let's go to the y editor right now so I can talk about this a little bit more. So I hit my y equals button, and you'll notice that I still have my linear equation in here, my quadratic equation. Now I'm going to turn off my linear equation because typically we only use this option with quadratic functions. And what this option does, it finds us the zeros for this equation. Now let me hit the graph button so I can show you graphically what this means. When I hit the graph button, you'll notice here's my parabola, and the zeros of an equation graphically show up as the roots of the equation, which you'll notice there's 2 here, or also what teachers may say is the x-intercepts of the equation. Now let's go ahead and use this option. If I go second trace and choose 0, you immediately see the equation that I'm using, and then it says left bound with a question mark. And what it wants me to do is it wants me to move this cursor to the left of the intercept, or the 0 of the equation that I'm looking for. And if this is the one I'm looking at, you'll notice that my cursor is now to the left of it. So I'm going to hit enter, and then it says right bound, it has a question mark. So I'm going to move my cursor to the right, and you'll notice that it's now to the right of my intercept. There's my intercept, and there's my cursor. It's to the right of it, and I'm going to hit enter. And then it says guess, and the calculator is basically asking you here, are you ready for me to guess this intercept? And so if you hit enter, it's going to take us to the intercept of 2, 0. So 2 is the x value that if I plugged it into this equation would make this equation come out to be 0, or yield a y of 0. Let's try it again with this other intercept. So I'm going to go second trace. I'm going to choose choice 2. And I got to move it. It has to be to the left of my intercept. So right there should be good. I hit enter. And it doesn't matter how close you get. You just got to make sure that it's to the left of it and that it's to the right of it. And to show you, I'll just go way up here. And you know this is obviously right of my intercept, which is right there. And I'm going to hit enter. Are you ready for me to guess? Yes, we are. Hit enter. And there's my intercept of 5, 0. And again, 5 is the x value. When I plug it into the equation, we'll make the equation come out to be 0, or we'll make the y value of the equation be 0. In this session, we're going to go over the third and fourth option from the calculate menu, which is the minimum and maximum options. If we go back to our y editor right now, I just want to show you that we're going to be using the same equation that we've been using, x squared minus 7x plus 10, and that my linear equation still turned off because with these two options too, like the previous session, it's typically just used on a parabola or a quadratic equation. So let's go back to our graph and look at our parabola so we can discuss this. And you'll notice that it's in the shape of a U. And whenever it's in the shape of a U, it has a minimum point. Or your teachers may refer to that point as a turning point because it's coming down and then it turns up. So let's go ahead and use this option. So I'm going to go second trace to bring up my calculate menu. And I'm going to choose minimum. And again, just like the previous section, it's asking for the left bound. So I'm going to move my cursor to the left of my turning point. Hit enter. And then it's going to ask for the right bound. And I'm going to move this to the right of my turning point. And I'm going to hit enter. And I'm going to hit enter again. And then it brings up our turning point, our minimum point of 3.5 with our y value of negative 2.25. During the short little break there, I entered in another equation to help illustrate the maximum point option on the calculate menu. If you notice, I've turned off my y2, which was the x squared minus 7x plus 10. And the new parabola that we're going to look at is going to be negative x squared plus 4x plus 4. So let's see what it looks like. And there's my new parabola. You notice it's an upside down U, and on this one I'm going to have a maximum point right at the top there, and remember it's also called the turning point, and we're going to find out what the coordinates of that is right now. So I'm going to go second, trace, and I'm going to choose maximum this time. And I'm going to pick a left bound, just go a little bit left of that point, hit enter, and then I'm going to go to the right, hit enter, and then calculator's ready for me to guess, so I hit enter again. And you'll notice our point is, well, our x is a decimal, and sometimes this happens. If a decimal comes out like this, 1.9 repeating, that usually means that the x is really 2. And our y value, so right, it's 8. So our turning point on this one would have been 2, 8. The last option that we're going to go over from the calculate menu is the intersect option. Now before we do that, I just want to point out that I turned my linear equation back on, and I also turned back on my original quadratic equation. So let's go back to the graph to just see what they look like. And here we go. There's my linear equation, and there's my quadratic equation. And let's go to the calculate menu right now and choose that option of intersect, which is choice 5. And what this is going to do, this is going to help us pick out those points of intersections between the two graphs. And you'll notice right now my cursor is on the y1 or the linear equation, and what I need to do is I just need to move that cursor somewhere down where I think the point of intersection is. And I'm going to hit enter. And then you'll notice that my cursor kind of jumped to my second equation, which is the quadratic equation, or the parabola. And again, I just want to make sure the cursor is close to the point of intersection, and it is. So I'm going to hit enter. It's going to say guess, and yes, we're ready for that. Hit enter, and the point of intersection on this left side is 1, 4. Let's try it with this point over here. So I'm going to go back to my calculate menu, pick intersect, and you'll notice I'm on my linear equation. I'm going to move down towards that second point of intersection, and I'm going to hit enter. And then again, I'm just going to move this cursor over there a little bit towards the point of intersection, hit enter. Am I ready to guess? Yep. Hit enter again, and there's our second point of intersection, which is 4, comma, -2.